substance. Okay. Well, good evening. I am happy to be here. It's my third time to Australia, but the first time I've gotten to see any of your cities, and I've learned two things since I came here from America. One, watching the Olympics. While I was in America, I had no idea there were non-American athletes in the games. Now I have no idea if there's any other athletes other than Australians on Channel 7. And I found out that I have a California accent, so that was an eye-opener for me. So that's always good to know. Well, so the question on the table obviously deals with two things. One, God, and two, belief in God. And I don't think we can completely separate those. That is to say, we form our beliefs about all sorts of things. Beliefs about religion, politics, economic ideology, social attitudes, and so forth. And then we usually back into those beliefs after the fact, after we're committed to them, and find reasons why we ended up selecting those particular beliefs, that they are absolutely the right ones, even though these tend to be largely determined by where we happen to have been born, who our parents were, what our culture determined us to think, our peer groups, mentors, friends and colleagues, and so forth. That's how it works. And in my case, I was not raised religious, but my peer groups in high school and college were religious, so I went down that path. I did go to Pepperdine University in California. It didn't hurt that it was in Malibu, California, I have to admit. But nevertheless, I took it pretty seriously and became a student of theology and took courses in the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the life of Jesus and the writings of C.S. Lewis and so on. And I became an evangelical, which by definition means you are evangelizing. You go door to door, sort of an Amway with Bibles. And but we did take that pretty seriously. And then later, when I became sort of a militant atheist and I went around to those same doors and knocked on the doors. I take it back. I was, wrong. And which sort of reminds me of what you get when you cross an atheist with a Jehovah's Witness, is somebody who knocks on your door for no reason at all. Now, look, I can't possibly cover all of the arguments for and against God's existence in 20 minutes. To that extent, I feel a little bit like I have to take the posture of Henry VIII when he told his wives, "I won't keep you long." Basically, it boils down to this, that there are a set of mysteries that traditionally we have been unable to explain, that historically have always been explained from a top-down, supernatural entity, being of some kind, that has always usually been called God or gods. And in the last 10,000 years, there's been roughly about 10,000 gods. So I presume most of you, like me, are atheists when it comes to Zeus and Thor and Ganesha and all the other thousands of gods that people have traditionally believed. And to that extent, you already know where I'm coming from, because you know that there's no evidence for those gods. They're socially constructed. They were part of the culture. People really did believe them then. They don't believe them now. We do recognize, all of us in the room, how that works. I'm just saying it's okay to go one God farther. It's the same principle at work in the culture you happen to have been born in, how you were raised, particular sets of arguments that are used after you already make that belief commitment, and so forth. Nevertheless, of course, those arguments are still made after the fact. Let me clarify one thing. Atheist, non-theist, agnostic, bright, whatever. The labels are problematic because it assumes that you already know what I'm talking about when I talk about this particular word. Atheism is just a lack of belief in a God. It isn't a thing to be. It isn't a position to take. It's not like a political position where we have 7 planks that we adhere to. It's just, I just don't believe in God. That's it. So in the Q&A, don't ask me, do you have faith in atheism, or isn't atheism a religion? No, it isn't anything. It's just a starting point. No, I don't believe. Now let's talk about what we do believe. And if you want, in Q&A, we can go about other things that we do believe, human rights or civil liberties or whatever. But that's not religion. That's politics. And if you want to talk about a particular religion, did Jesus rise from the dead? Was he resurrected? And so on. That's irrelevant to the question at hand tonight. Is there a God? There may be a God, and the Christian God is not the right God. There may be some other God, or maybe the Christian religion is the wrong one, but it's the right God. There's all those possibilities. That's also irrelevant. We just want to know, is there a creator of some kind? The arguments used boil down to really two general things that Immanuel Kant identified in the 18th century. That is, the starry heavens above and the moral law within. That's really what it boils down to. How do you guys, scientists, non-theists, secularists, whatever, explain the starry heavens above and the moral law within? In modern jargon, it's something like, where'd the universe come from? Well, the Big Bang. Yeah, okay, but what banged the Big Bang? How did that get started? What was there before the Big Bang, and so on? Or how is it that the configuration of the laws of nature are in such a way that here we are? That is, we're structured in a certain way that gives rise to molecules and biochemistry and life and so forth. Here we are. And then, where does morality come from? Why would anybody be good without God? And then, how does God act in the world? That is, it appears maybe there's miracles or unexplained mysteries that scientists can't explain, and that's how God works in the world. So let's go through these real quickly. The problem with saying, well, there has to be a cause to the universe that does not need a cause. Why can't there be, and that therefore is God, that's an ancient argument, but why does there have to be some sort of entity that causes the universe? Why can't it be a non-entity? Maybe there's some other universe that causes universes. And of course the theist would say, yeah, but those universes had to be created by some non-universe type creator. And that gets us into an infinite regress, and that can go nowhere. Those are the kinds of philosophical questions I think that are best resolved over adult beverages late at night. Because ultimately I think our brains are too restricted, too limited in our capacity to solve those kinds of problems. So to me, a scientist, it doesn't offer anything to say God did it. Why not just say Zeus did it? It's a non-answer. That is, as soon as you step out of the realm of the natural and say, well, I think a supernatural entity did it, the word supernatural, it's just a word. It's just a linguistic placeholder for, I don't know, or I can't explain it, or it's an unsolved mystery. We'll say it was a supernatural event. To use a slightly different subject, less controversial for tonight, the paranormal. It's another subject that we deal with at Skeptic Magazine, skeptic.com, the paranormal, ESP, psychic power, I'm reading your mind, and so on. And so let's say that it turns out, I don't believe that, by the way, but let's say it turned out that people really can read each other's minds. And let's say that we figured out a mechanism for it, explaining the paranormal. It turned out it's some quantum mechanics thing. It's like inside neurons, the little subatomic particles in the atoms inside our neurons collapse, and the wave function collapses across neurons in a sort of harmonious way. And there's this spooky action at a distance that we know does happen in quantum mechanics experiments, and somehow it leaves my skull and influences the neurons in your skull, and I can read your thoughts and you can read my thoughts. And now we know what the mechanism is. Let's say that turns out to be true. That's an actual theory, by the way. I'm just making that up. Some stuff I just make up. That one, that's real. That would no longer be the paranormal, right? It would just be physics, psychophysics or something. It would be a branch of psychology, a branch of neuroscience, a branch of quantum mechanics or physics or something like that. So the word paranormal is just a linguistic placeholder, much like when cosmologists and astronomers talk about dark energy and dark matter. They don't mean that as an explanation. It isn't an explanation. It isn't an answer at all. It's a linguistic placeholder that says, we're not sure what's causing the galaxies to hold together the way that they do. There's not enough stuff that we can see and measure at the moment to explain it. Therefore, there's something else. We'll just call it dark energy for now. The problem I have with theism is that that would be the answer for the theist. So it's a dark energy, or God did it, or something like that. As if that's an answer. It's not an answer. It's a non-answer. It's a showstopper. It's a conversation stopper. If you're doing science and reason and logic and so on, we have to keep pushing further and deeper. What caused that? So that's the problem with offering something like a supernatural explanation. How do we explain the origins of the universe? God did it. That's not an answer. It doesn't answer anything. You know, don't you want to know how she did it? That alone tells us something about the cultural, psychological constraints on our thoughts about a deity. As for the fine-tunedness of the universe, well, look, it is pretty amazing how all the laws of nature are configured in such a way to give rise to atoms and molecules and inorganic chemistry and organic chemistry and self-replicating double helix DNA